If you're watching this video, you likely fall into two categories. Either one, you applied to law school and got in, which in that case, congratulations. Or two, you're thinking about applying to law school, which in that case, just don't. Run away. In any case, in this video, what I want to do is provide kind of like a blueprint of what law school looks like. That way you have an idea because like most people who go to law school, they don't really know what to expect. And it very much is a learning curve. There's a lot that you don't know and you have to figure it out on the way. And many of us simply don't have parents or any family members that go into the legal field or are in the legal field to provide guidance and advice because it is very different from undergrad. Very, very different. Although they do share some similarities, which I'll go into. But yeah, this video, I'm going to try to give a blueprint of what you should be expecting in law school. And fair warning, this doesn't really apply to everybody because everybody's experience is different and every law school is different. But I'm going to talk about my experience, what I've seen, and what I think is replicated throughout the country and throughout all law schools. So let's begin. Let's begin with the similarities with undergrad. You know, they're similar in the sense that it's still school, you have to go to class, you have to ask questions, you have to do reading, you have to go prepared. Those things are the same as undergrad. And the good news is if you are in law school, for the most part, that means that you were a good student because you were able to get the grades and were well organized or smart enough to be able to pass your classes, get a good GPA, be able to take the LSAT, get a decent score, and be able to go to law school. So in that category, I think that most people, if not everybody that goes to law school, are well equipped for the day-to-day tasks. However, law school is still very, very different from undergrad. From the methodology that's used by professors to teach, to the types of readings you're going to do, to the type of writing that you do compared to what you had to do in undergrad. For starters, you know, in undergrad, you could get away with doing a lot of descriptive writing. In law school, the shorter, the better. For the most part, unless you want to be a litigator and then you want to add some fluff to be descriptive. But for the most part, you want to be as concise and condensed as possible. That is something that law school teaches. That is something that firms prefer, and you'll be surprised how difficult it is to be able to reduce your writing, especially if you're someone who loves to use adjectives. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's start from the beginning. So let's look at your first year of law school. Many people will agree that your first year of law school is the most important. The reason being that the grades that you get your first year can kind of determine where your career is going to start. Not necessarily how it's going to end in the long run, but where it can start. If your grades are good enough, it can give you a really good boost into starting a job at a really, really nice firm that pays you really, really well, if that's something that you want, obviously. But it can also give you great opportunities elsewhere, whether it be in government or in nonprofits or in the public sector in general. It doesn't have to be tied into a law firm that pays you really, really well. But if we're going to be really, really blunt, those big law firms, they are the ones that do pay attention a lot more to grades because to them, they have to keep a level of prestige, which is complete bullshit. I don't necessarily think that great grades equal great attorney, but they do, and apparently there are studies that show, supposedly, that the grades that you get in law school kind of show what type of lawyer you're going to be and how successful you're going to be, but take it as you will, believe it or not, I don't know. So now that I've established your first year of law school is really important, let's talk about what you should expect. For starters, everybody in their first year of law school tend to take the same classes. Doesn't matter what law school you go to, what part of the country you go to, there is a first year curriculum that all law schools follow. These classes are what you call bar courses. Bar courses just mean that these are classes, these are subjects that are going to be on the bar exam. So you don't really get a choice in picking your classes your first year. They kind of picked for you and you're kind of giving your schedule. So at least that's not something that you have to worry about. In undergrad, something that you would have to worry about is picking out your classes. Even in your first year before you even started, you know, you would have to choose your classes before even going to college. And to me, that was kind of a scary thing because I had no idea like what classes I should even be taking. So if you're someone that worries about that, at least in this case, you won't really have to. Law schools also tend to break up the students into sections. So if your law school has 200 something students, they'll break them up into 4 sections, and that will be kind of your core group where you'll probably see them more often than anybody else in your section because you'll kind of have the same classes and the same professors. And within those sections, try to befriend a couple of people. That way you have and are able to establish a study group because it's going to be super helpful having a study group, people who you'll be able to talk to every single week and meet up and be able to discuss the cases, be able to break down the cases, be able to analyze the cases, and especially will come in handy once the midterm and final roll up and you have to study for them. And that is assuming you have midterms, because there are a lot of classes and a lot of professors that simply just don't give out midterms, or they do have midterms but that it's ungraded and the entire grade of that class just falls on the final. It's actually very common, so be prepared for that. That's actually something that's also very different from undergrad. A lot of these classes are very exam heavy. There's hardly any participation credit. There's hardly any homework credit. It's mostly just you have to do readings, you have to learn the law, you have to learn how to apply the law, and you have to take an exam. And in the exam, that'll be the sole thing that determines your grade. And because there's a lot of pressure on just one exam, the best way to prepare for it is every single week go over your notes that you've taken from these classes. Go to lectures, obviously, but once you're done with the week, try to go over your notes and try to outline as early as possible, and especially try to frame it within like the bigger picture. At the beginning, it's going to be hard, especially because you still don't have a grasp of how the whole class is and what exactly, how all these different topics coexist together. Eventually, it'll start making sense. But by having a breakdown, an outline, and a breakdown of the individual concepts, when you have enough substance, you'll be able to actually start doing a flow chart, and it'll give you a better understanding of how to use these concepts to analyze a fact pattern. Because another difference between undergrad and law school is that your exams tend to be fact patterns, meaning that the professor will write up some facts. Sometimes it's just a page, sometimes it's more than a page, where it would just throw you facts, and at the end it will simply ask you a question. If it's criminal law, it will ask you what charges can be brought up against this person and tell me if they committed it or not. So then you'll have to go through all the different crimes that you issue in the fact pattern and give an analysis as to whether or not you think and you can argue that this person committed the crime or not. But anyways, I think I sidetracked a little bit. It's important to establish these things, these concepts, and the differences between law school exams and every other exam you've taken before. But now it's going into specifically your first year. Again, you'll take the 1L curriculum, these bar courses. My best piece of advice would be take these classes super, super seriously. Try not to miss them. Ask questions, like go to office hours, go talk to your tutors, go talk to the professor, not tutors, sorry, go talk to the TAs, go talk to the professors, ask questions, ask things that you don't understand so you get a better understanding, because unlike undergrad, if you don't understand one subject, one piece of the puzzle, essentially, it's very hard to be able to see the entire puzzle. You know, think of it like a puzzle. If you're missing a piece of the puzzle, you can't complete the whole picture. If you don't understand a specific topic, it'll be harder for you to understand everything and see the bigger picture overall. And this is with most bar courses. There are some that, you can get away with not understanding everything, but it's best to understand as much as you can and at least be able to frame it and see it as an overview of how everything interplays, because that will make it so much easier when you actually have to do your full analysis on the exam. But again, I got sidetracked. So back to your first year of law school. In your first semester, you take your classes, you study hard, you get good grades, whatever. You go into your winter break. Around this time is when most people start applying for jobs. I will make a video about specifically how to look for jobs for law students, because I know it is a very, very, very stressful and anxiety-driven time because of how quickly everything feels. You go into your first day of law school, you're done with your first semester of law school, and you're immediately thrown into applying for jobs for your first summer, which would be the summer after your first year of law school. It's so quick. It's so quick. And you should start applying for jobs as soon as you can, even if you don't have your grades yet, because eventually you can still submit your grades afterwards, your transcript afterwards. If any position pops up, right, and they're looking for first years, just apply for it as soon as you can. That was actually one of my biggest mistakes, is I didn't start as soon as I possibly could. I actually took my winter break and did nothing during my winter break. It was a really tough first semester for me, and I decided to just chill and take those 2 weeks off. It all worked out in the end, but in hindsight, I should have probably started a lot sooner. I won't go into too much detail about what you should do to better prepare for applying for jobs because, like I said, I'll be making a video. Subscribe for that. But moving on, you apply for your job. Hopefully, you're able to secure a first summer gig halfway through your second semester, if not sooner. Assuming you did, then you just do your second semester. You do the same thing. You work your ass off and you try to get the best grades possible because those grades are also going to come into play during your first summer, and I'll get to that in a second. And once you're done with your second semester, then you start your first summer job. These jobs tend to be roughly 10 weeks. Some are longer, some are less, depending on what type of job you get. And they usually start right after finals, if not maybe 1 or 2 weeks after, and they run through the entire summer. And this summer job is meant for you to just get some experience of the legal field. Most people go into law school either one, not knowing what type of law they want to go in, or two, simply not knowing how many different areas of law there is. So they just simply want to experience what type of laws there are out there before making a decision. And that's exactly what your first summer job should be. It's just get the experience, get exposed to as many different areas of law as possible, so that way you're better prepared when you have to apply for your second year summer job. Which that neatly brings me into applying for your second summer job, which roughly happens right before you start your second year of law school. Yes, that is correct. You start applying for your second summer job a year before that second summer. It usually happens in August. It's called OCI, or if you're another part of the country and not California, maybe it's called something different. OCI just means on-campus interview. But essentially, you just apply to different jobs and look for a opportunity and a position for your second summer. And this ties in to what I was saying, that your first year grades matter so much, because when you're applying for these jobs, since you haven't started your second year of law school yet, the only grades you have to use is your first year, which is kind of unfair because it takes a lot of people time to adjust to law school, and by the time they adjust, they either already took their final exams or they're halfway through their first semester, or some people take halfway through the second semester to figure things out. I kind of find it unfair that the grades for your first year are so important when there's just a huge learning curve and so much can go wrong so quickly, which can then screw you a lot. And maybe this is a personal preference of mine, but I think your objective during these interviews and these job applications and hunting for a job for your second summer, you should probably find a place where they will potentially offer you a position post-graduation. Firms, for the most part, do that. They usually hire second years during that second summer so that they can basically put them on some sort of trial that then later, at the end of the summer, they decide whether or not they want to hire you for after you graduate. Again, maybe you don't want to go to a firm and you want to do something else, and maybe that whole thing is different. That's not the path I took. I went straight to a firm afterwards. I think most people do. I just think it makes things a lot less stressful if you know that at the end of your second summer, if you do everything well and you're a good person and you will do a good job and do a good work, have good work product or whatever, or simply just in some cases don't mess up, that you'll have the opportunity to come back after graduation, assuming that you obviously like the place. Moving along. So now you apply to your jobs. Hopefully you secure something soon. If not, during your second year, you'll also be applying for more jobs as they come. But now you start your second year of law school. Your second year, you actually get to choose the classes you want. I recommend taking as many bar classes as you can. There's a lot of people who make the mistake of not taking as many bar classes as they can, thinking that they'll be able to just study for it when the summer rolls around, when the summer of the bar exam, and taking the bar course with either Themis or Barbary or some other bar course out there will be enough to be able to pass the bar exam. Now, that can be true, but why subject yourself to that? Like, why run the risk? 10 weeks of studying for the bar exam over the summer is not a long time, especially for classes that are a lot more complicated, like evidence. So I think taking the classes in law school is just a better choice because you'll have more time with each individual class and be able to learn it at a better pace than cramming in 13 plus subjects in 10 weeks. At the same time, though, you should definitely take classes that you're just simply interested in that aren't bar courses, classes that may help you decide what type of area of law you want to get into. Something I regret in law school is not taking an immigration class. I definitely should have, and for my own personal reasons that I won't go into now, I did not take an immigration class in law school, but I do regret it, especially since right now I'm doing a pro bono case, an asylum case, where I'm helping somebody in a removal proceeding, and I have good guidance. Have good supervising attorneys that are helping me explain the process, but I really wish I would have just taken an immigration class because I feel like I don't have enough background information on immigration law in general that if I would have taken the class, I definitely think I would be in a better position now. In terms of how many classes you should take, I personally think you should try to take as many classes as you can. Try to max out the maximum credits or units allowed, because if you do that during your second year, things should be fairly smooth during your third year, and you want to have a smooth third year. You actually hear a lot of people say that they don't fully understand why there is a third year in law school to begin with. If we're going to be really honest, I think law schools just have the third year there because they just want more year of tuition from all the students. I don't think there's a lot of value in the third year of law school, and I think most people will agree, because by the end of the summer, if all things go well, you'll have a job secure for post-graduation. And so your third year grades don't really matter too much, although nobody will admit it, but they really don't. Again, I'm not saying slack off, definitely don't. But it's like senioritis all over again. Since it's your last year of law school and you've already secured a gig and you have an offer, you'll want to slack off. So by making your second year really, really hard and taking as many classes as you can and getting most of the bar courses out of the way, you can have a nicer and smoother, easier, quote unquote, third year. But before we go into detail about your third year, go into your second summer job, do a good job, ask questions. I'll make a video about this. A lot of firms really focus on two things, I think. Number one, personality, and I think that's actually the biggest thing is just talk to people. If there's events at your firm, go to those events, talk to people, get to know people. You know, these firms, these places, they'll teach you how to be a lawyer. You don't really get to learn how to be a lawyer in law school. In law school, they teach you how to think like a lawyer, but not how to be an actual practicing attorney. You'll learn that on the job. And these places, these jobs, they are going to be willing to teach you. So they're not really looking too much in regards to like having the perfect work product and all your assignments are A+s. They're looking more about your personality. Is, can I work with this person? You know, that's what they want to know. It's like they want to know if you're somebody that they can rely on, if you're somebody that they want to work with, if they want to know that you're somebody that when times get tough, you guys can work together and you'll know that you have each other's back for really, really hard cases and the long nights that you'll have to eventually pull at some point. But the second thing is obviously, following instructions or doing decent work product, or at least you just have to seem competent. As long as you're competent, you'll be fine. And again, I want to believe that everybody that goes and gets into law school are competent. But yeah, after you're done with your second summer job, assuming that is a place that will offer you a job post-graduation, you're basically done in terms of looking for a job, but not everybody has that opportunity, not everybody has that chance. Whether they didn't get an offer from the job, or the job just simply doesn't give offers out. So you have to now look for another job. And for those folks, things get a little bit complicated because the third year isn't going to be as smooth. They have to juggle law school and also apply for jobs at the same time. But assuming that you do have a job lined up for after you graduate and after you take the bar exam, then your third year should really be finishing up any bar courses that you weren't able to take during your second year, taking some more classes that you are interested in. If you're going into transactional work, you definitely should take some sort of contract drafting class. And honestly, it's just not really fucking up during your third year. If all went well and you did the right things, then your third year, you can even hang out with your friends a lot more. Maybe potentially travel. Depends on whether or not you have the funds to do that, because A lot of people in law school are also broke. But yeah, once you're done with your third year of law school, graduation comes up. You graduate and it'll go by super quickly. Graduation will sneak up on you. You graduate, everybody's happy. You take your pictures, your family sees you, you get your degree. And then the bar exam. See, the funny thing about law school is that even when you're done with your 3 years of law school, even when you get your degree, even though you walk the stage, you're still not done. Because now you have to take the bar exam. In almost all states, I think except Washington or Wyoming. I think it's Wyoming. And this exam determines whether or not you are licensed to actually practice law. See, a JD, or the degree that they give you in law school, does not prove that. You have to take this bar exam and be able to pass it and then get your actual license. And in most places, and I think all places, but I guess I'll specifically talk about California, it is a 2-day exam. Your first day is a bunch of essays. Your second day is a bunch of multiple choice questions. Depending on what jurisdiction you're in, you either just take the MBE, or they also have something else that's kind of equivalent but not really to it. I don't really remember what it's called. I'll pull it up and put it somewhere on the screen. But yeah, after you graduate, immediately right after you graduate, like a day after, you may have like one free day afterwards, but then you go straight into studying for the bar exam. That roughly is about 10 weeks. And then at the end of the 10 weeks, you take the exam in July. And if you don't pass, you have to wait until February to take it, because you can only take it twice in the year, and the exam sucks. And if you want to learn more about the exam, click in this video right here where I talk about my experience